Welcome to another episode of the Homestead series.
This is a sandwich bread recipe. I already added the water starter. So now I can add in the flour. I'm gonna use bread flour today. Sometimes I use all-purpose flour, just depending on how I feel. Need 1,000 grams. I'm gonna make 2 loaves. So that's more than you would typically need for a standard loaf of bread. And avocado oil. I don't like to get my hands dirty, so I try to
Use a spatula.
Okay. When you can't stir it anymore, then bring in the big guns. Okay. You can see it's very sticky. Very sticky. And the goal, again, is just to make sure all of the flour is incorporated.
Now we're going to let it rest for 30 minutes.
Okay, it's been 30 minutes since we let this rest. I'm gonna get my hands wet because it's always easier to work with the dough when your hands are wet. Okay, and we're gonna do what's called a stretch and fold. So you can see how much the dough has changed. That's 30 minutes. And I'm just gonna gather at the dough from one side, pull it straight up, and fold it over itself. And then turn it, so I'm at 12 o'clock, turn it from 3 o'clock to 12 o'clock, and do the same thing. Until I go all the way around the bowl. So I'll do it 4 times. And each time I'm trying to scrape the dough off the side of the bowl. Let me get my hands wet again. Just to make sure I'm working all the dough. Ooh, and by the 4th one, it'll be much tougher to work with. Great, and now I'm gonna let it sit for 30 minutes and then do it again. It's been about 30 minutes since I did my last stretch and fold, and the dough has changed a lot. It has grown and settled into the bowl. So now we're gonna do it again. There you go. And we will let this sit for 30 more minutes and do another stretch and fold. Welcome back to our next stretch and fold. Ooh. It looks the same as last time, but it's definitely coming together. There's some, maybe no bubbles yet. The dough becomes more and more stretchy as you do more stretch and folds. More easier to work with. It's less sticky. It's fewer bits of dough sticking to my hands. It's just kind of fun. This part. There we go. And I have 2 more. 1 or 2 more to go. Okay. Here we are. Getting some bubbles starting to form. Let's do 1 more stretch and fold and then see where we're at. The weather is such a big factor with sourdough. It can make the process go a lot faster or slower. Maybe if it's cold out, you need to add an additional stretch and folds. If it's warm, you maybe could skip a stretch and fold. So knowing different signs and how your dough works is helpful. Okay, now we're gonna let it rest for 30 minutes and then come back and check it out. I had to look at my videos to know how many stretch and folds I've done. What is time? So we are at 4 stretch and folds And because we had some of those bubbles forming, I feel like we're in a good place. The tension is good. The texture feels good. So now we're going into our bulk ferment period, and you want the dough to double in size. If you are unable to bake your dough in the same day, you would refrigerate it for at least 24 hours up to 3 days before you would continue on the process. I want to bake my bread today, and I think I have enough time to do that. It's about 11:30 here. We have something this evening, but the bulk fermentation period will take 2 to 3 hours. Then we will transfer the dough to bread pans, and that will take 1 to 2 hours. The oven will preheat for an hour while the dough is rising, and then we'll bake it for 30 minutes to an hour. So if it takes the whole time, that would be 3, 5, 6 hours. I think it could be done before we have to leave the house this evening. So I'm gonna go for it, and stay tuned for the progress. Plus it's warmer today, which is going to help the dough cooperate in a more efficient manner.
Sometimes you can help speed things along by placing your dough in a warm environment, like a windowsill or an oven with the light on.
The dough has been in the windowsill for a few hours now. It's not ready.
So it has some curvature on the sides of the bowl. You can see how it looks like that. It has some of the bubbles I mentioned, and then a few jiggles. There's a bubble over here. But it's still sticky, and I don't think it's done proofing yet.
We are going to switch up our system. We're going to throw it in the oven with the oven light on and hope that helps it to perk up a little quicker. I don't have a tripod, so my phone is currently on a bag of flour. Earlier I was using a bowl in a peanut container, cashew container. We're almost ready to throw our bread in these bread pans, probably a little behind. It's about 4:30, so my dough has been rising for 5 hours. And the recipe says 3 in a 72-degree house. So, you know, timing will just vary depending on the temperature of your house. I put it in the oven earlier, as I mentioned, with the light on, but now that the oven's on, it's on the stove, so it will still receive some heat from being close to the oven.
And I'm just buttering my bread pans. Over the years, we were using like a spray bottle with oil in it, and it just wasn't effective. Probably because I wasn't taking the spatula around the edges to make sure it got in the corners and such. So I started adding flour
to the pans with the oil, and it was just a mess. And it left residue on the bread, which is fine, but it looks nicer without it. So somebody suggested just using butter. Here we are. A little bit of flour on the counter, not too much though. Just enough so that it doesn't stick to the, oops. I always work in this corner, and I always get flour on the floor. Ooh, yeah. Okay, very jiggly now. I like to use this purple plastic scraper. It has a curved edge, just to help me get the bread, pull the bread away from the sides, the dough, because I don't want to leave any of the dough behind. And even as I'm going around, there's no dough transferring to my scraper or my hands, which is also a great sign. Okay, now we're going to, yes, see all these holes. There we go. Bloop. So satisfying pulling dough out of the bowl. I don't know. Now we want to cut the dough in half. with my dough cutter. Okay, we're going to do a little shaping here. I like to think of it like an envelope, so I'm gonna fold it in thirds. Oh, I probably got too much flour here. And now I'm just gonna roll it up like a burrito, slightly pushing down at the same time to create some tension. Put that right there. I'll show you this one here. Okay. Okay. Oh, this feels so nice. The last few times I've made this, it has, I don't know, not turned out super well for some reason. Okay, so now we're just going to roll it up, try to push out some of the air as we build that tension. I don't think I got these even, but that's okay. I'm just gonna give it a little push down. Okay, so now that we have these here, we are ready for the next step. We're just gonna throw these in a plastic bag. They need to rise for a little bit longer, and this will help create a warm environment for them. Oh, I'm probably gonna put those. Yeah, let's try. Ooh, there we go. Oh, like so. Putting them to bed. They will probably take 1 to 2 hours, hopefully not 3 hours, to be ready till they're ready for the next step. Okay, so it's been maybe an hour since I put the bread, oh, this bag has a hole in it, in the bread pans, and it's looking pretty good. Unfortunately, I didn't cut them evenly, so this one's a lot fuller. Dave's prepping potatoes for dinner. So we're gonna go for it and see what happens, because I don't want this one to keep rising. Super jiggly.
It's beautiful.
If I had a floured finger, I would poke it, but we're gonna say it's good enough. Okay, so before I put it in the oven, give it a little spritz to help it spring. Sandwich bread is not baked in a Dutch oven, which would help the spring, so I'm kind of creating a little domed environment, humid environment. So I have a sheet tray full of water, probably about 2 cups of water, and then a pizza stone that's been heating. I've been preheating the oven, not as long as it probably would like, but I was cooking brownies in here earlier, so it's warm. The stone probably isn't warm enough, but that's okay. So now we're gonna cook it for 25 minutes. After the bread cooked in the oven for 15 minutes at 400 degrees, then I took the pan of water out and cooked them for another 20 minutes maybe. The next part of the process, you are letting the bread brown, and you want the center to cook through. So we didn't take it out until it reached an internal temperature of about 200 degrees. And then once we remove the bread from the oven, you immediately take it out of the pans. And you know how well you've buttered your pan if it comes out evenly, which this time it did, mercifully. And then you add a layer of butter to the pans as they cool, and then it will absorb into the crust and just help make it softer. So there you go. Once the bread is cooled, then we will put one in the fridge and one will go in the freezer. We probably go through about a loaf of bread a week, so I repeat this process every 2 weeks or so. Happy baking!